Good afternoon and welcome to yet another episode of Demolition Live. I'm your host, Mark Anthony. Now, I've got to be honest, I wasn't planning to go live today, but I've had some stuff nagging around in my head, so I thought I would just press the button, and if somebody turns up, that will be great. If nobody does, we'll put it on YouTube and maybe people can watch it later. Today's show is all about the future, and I'll warn you now that even by my own meandering standards, this one contains a lot of metaphors. I'd never really thought about this before, but with so much time on my hands these days, I find my mind just wandering off into previously uncharted waters a hell of a lot at the moment. I reckon that under normal circumstances, a journalist's brain spends about 80% of its time looking at the right now, right here, right now. It then spends about 15% of its time looking back to provide context for that 80%. Which leaves about 5% brain time to consider the future beyond the next press junket or the next free lunch. But for me, at least, that balance is pretty much reversed during the coronavirus outbreak. For more than 3 months now, there's been precious little now to even think about or to look at. And no one wants to listen to me babbling on about the good old days. So rather than reporting on what is, I just find myself increasingly considering what might be. My journalist binoculars are constantly scanning the horizon at the moment for some indication of what the future of this industry might look like. I've had these binoculars for years. They're hardly used, if I'm being completely honest. They also have a rose-tinted lens function. I've never used that at all. And like many other people, I've used the lockdown as a learning opportunity. I still can't play the guitar, and I can't speak Italian either, both of which have been on my bucket list for longer than I care to admit. But in the past 3 months, I've sat through endless webinars on robotics, automation, mobile communications. I've consumed hour upon hour of podcasts discussing smart construction, connected sites, machine controls, driver aids, data warehouses, and a whole host of other stuff that sounds like it's been torn straight from the mind of Arthur C. Clarke. And having been afforded this glimpse into the future, I can tell you 3 things. If you're concerned about Big Brother watching you today, the future is going to look like your worst nightmare. If you hate using computers or mobile devices, or if the word data gives you the willies, you're going to hate the future with a passion. Oh, and in the future, certainly the future I've seen, demolition barely gets a mention. Now, and this is where the metaphor overload really begins. I'm not suggesting there will be no demolition in the future. Far from it. In an island nation with limited construction space and finite resources, demolition is as ever present as both death and taxes. Some might argue that the general public welcomes all 3 with equal warmth and relish. From all that I've seen and learned, it seems that construction's future is set to be a huge party of electronic communications, data collection, and information sharing. But it's a party at which demolition is not currently represented. And what I can't tell, however, is whether the wider industry decided to throw a party and then deliberately or otherwise forgot to invite demolition. Or, just as likely, demolition received the invitation, took a look at the guest list, decided it had nothing to wear, and chose to stay at home and wash its hair instead. Now, you'd think that would be enough of the metaphors, but you'd be wrong. Construction's future, as it's written today, is pre-unification West Germans driving BMWs and Mercedes along whisper-quiet 10-lane autobahns, while just over the wall, the East German neighbours are pushing their broken-down Trabant along potholed roads. To be clear, demolition is East Germany in this allegory. Or it could be an Amish community contentedly raising a barn or getting about by horse and cart, right next door to a Tesla factory churning out electric-powered supercars that require neither petrol or, indeed, hay. In this parable, demolition is sporting a beard and a hat. Metaphors aside, every version of the industry's future I've seen appears to show a divergence in which construction heralds the dawning of the age of Aquarius. A futuristic nirvana in which men, machines, and entire sites talk to each other and commune as one. Meanwhile, demolition appears to be consigned to the future's slow lane, a slow lane filled with lame horses, carts with missing wheels, and bitter East Germans looking desperately for a Trabant mechanic. Now, I don't think this is deliberate. Demolition is many things, but Luddite certainly isn't one of them. It's an industry with a proud history of innovation, and even though it's often reluctant, it ultimately welcomes and embraces change. I don't think those designing the construction sector of the future have overlooked demolition either. But construction is larger, much larger. So perhaps technologists consider construction to be the low-hanging fruit they just need to harvest before they get to the riper and juicier morsels. Sorry, I just can't seem to find the metaphor off switch at the moment. There is a chance, of course, that demolition contractors are, in fact, secretly embracing technology without telling me or their competitors. It's possible that they're holding this technology in some clandestine underground bunker, like an erstwhile Bond villain, but I doubt it. The truth is, there's something in the demolition's DNA that makes it harder to automate and to provide driver aids. Stumbling over my words today. I do apologise. This looks way better in the written form. An autonomous truck working in a mine or a quarry will do the same thing hundreds, thousands, even millions of times. It will be loaded in the same place. It will take the same haul road and then dump in the same place, the same time and time again. Similarly, if you're building a road or a railway or a tower block, endless and ceaseless repetition will be the order of the day. And machines are perfectly suited to repeating the same actions over and over and over again. In demolition, however, things are constantly changing. No two demolition sites are ever the same. Hell, no two demolition days are ever the same. So yes, you might be able to support a machine operator by sounding an alert when a high-reach excavator overreaches. That data could then be used as the basis for additional or for refresher training. You might be able to add some obstacle detection to enhance safety. And again, near misses could be recorded, analysed, and used for training purposes. And you can also throw in some GPS tracking to protect machines and attachments from theft. But true automation remains a long way off in this sector. However, it would be to the industry's enormous detriment if we allowed technology to pass us by. For one thing, in the age of building information modelling, or BIM, an increasing number of clients are demanding the collection, collation, and sharing of data on every aspect of a project. In the future, clients will be expecting BIM Plus on steroids, BIM Plus on steroids with a degree in quantum mechanics from Harvard University. Many demolition companies are now monitoring their machines, vehicle, and thereby their people to find potential savings on fuel, machine wear and tear, and unplanned downtime. That technology, as we all know, exists today. In the future, however, it will feed to a company dashboard that can monitor and report on even the tiniest fluctuations from the norm, identifying potential cost savings and fixing equipment issues long before a mechanic or a fitter is even required. The reactive assessment of telematics analysis will be as much a part of the industry as proactive assessment of risk. And then there is the biggest benefit of all. And it's a benefit that will not happen overnight. In fact, those of us that have been around for as long as I have might not get to see the benefit at all, but it's a benefit nonetheless. If you listen to the Content with Media podcast, as I do religiously, and it's a lot easier now that it's on iTunes, you will have heard the phrase demolition to demolition in place of the more traditional cradle to grave. Demolition to demolition describes a future in which the circular economy is not just a wish, but a living, breathing reality. A future in which data tracking begins with the demolition contractor's arrival on site, that continues right through the build phase, and that lasts for the structure's entire existence. Every aspect of the demolition contractor's work will be monitored, logged, and stored. Every item salvaged, recycled, or repurposed will be traceable to its point of origin. Fuel consumption and carbon emissions will be recorded and set against a report encompassing the entire project. Everything will be recorded, and that information will be stored securely and shared freely. Then, in 20, 30, or 100 years' time, when future generations of demolition contractors arrive to start the demolition to demolition process once again, they will not be required to guess where underground utilities lie, what the building's made from, what, if anything, has been added or taken away over the years, or how it's all held together. That information will be there, quite possibly passed down from an ancestor, wisdom drawn from a bygone age in which a father or grandfather who chose to attend construction's future party, even though he had nothing to wear. Now, you see what I did there? I made reference to the party in which Demolition may or may not have been invited that I mentioned way back at the beginning of all this. That's a journalistic trope in which a story comes full circle. It's at this point I would normally hit the final full stop with a camp flourish before making myself a well-earned cup of tea, reading this back with my feet on the desk and wearing a smug, self-satisfied grin on my face. But I do have another metaphor that, try as I might, I've been unable to shoehorn into everything that's gone before. So here goes. Even though the global COVID pandemic will have severely dented the investment plans of many, if not all, demolition companies, the wider sector is faced with a choice. It can embrace technology, freedom of information, and all-encompassing communication to become affluent and admired, like South Korea. Or it can lock itself away, fend off communications, take hairstyle advice from its glorious leader, and be looked upon with a mixture of fear and derision, like North Korea. You see, I knew I should have stopped at the party thing. Now, the chances are I won't have time to bring you another live broadcast until Wednesday next week, as my time currently is entirely taken up with our Hillhead Almost Live event that is taking place on Tuesday night. Just to give you an idea, this massive event will include contributions from, you ready? Bobcat, Cantrack, Case, Caterpillar, Doosan, Epiroc, Hitachi, Dynapack, Hyundai, JCB, Kinsofa, Kobelco, Leica, Liebherr, Lugong, Make Minor Builders T, Miller, Oilquick, Ritchie Brothers, Rotar, Sani, Sleipner, Steel Wrist, Thwaites, and Volvo. It will be broadcast live and simultaneously on multiple Facebook pages, multiple YouTube channels, and multiple Instagram feeds as well. So make sure you're near a computer or a mobile device at 6 o'clock UK time on Tuesday, the 23rd of June. Until then, thanks for watching. Stay safe, look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. I will see you on Tuesday night, 6 o'clock on Facebook. Check Demolition News as well, because we're probably going to be broadcasting it there as well. And I'll see you then for what promises to be the biggest construction equipment event of the year, aside from Connexpo. Thanks for watching.